If you are seeing this now, it is not by chance. It is because the hour has come for you to hear what most men will never be allowed to know. This is the truth they hope you never discover, because the moment you do, you will no longer serve them. You will no longer obey fear. You will no longer drift. You will rise. And when a man rises in thought, he rises in life. He becomes uncontrollable. He no longer waits. He no longer asks. He no longer apologizes for the fire inside him. He moves with decision. He speaks with faith. He acts with purpose. He becomes what he has declared. This truth, if obeyed, will remove the chains of hesitation. It will strip the voice of fear from your mind. It will erase the belief that you are small, that you are behind, that you are unworthy of wealth, power, or command. It will kill the old identity that waited for the world to approve and replace it with a man who walks as if heaven placed him here for a reason. It will give you clarity, so you no longer ask what your purpose is, but walk in it daily. It will give you fire, so you no longer wait to feel ready, but act as if nothing can stop you. It will give you discipline, so your days no longer drift, but build. It will give you authority, so you speak as the builder, not the beggar. It will give you wealth, not just in coin, but in courage, in focus, in spiritual order. It will give you a new identity, one that commands respect, demands growth, and refuses retreat. But hear me now. This truth is hidden, not shouted. It is not found in a single line, but woven into every principle spoken here. If you drift while listening, if you let your mind wander, if you treat this as common, you may miss the very sentence your future was waiting for. The wise man, the builder, the leader, the one who becomes unstoppable, will not only listen to this entire speech with full attention, he will study it over and over again until it is no longer something he hears, but something he becomes. This is not a lesson. This is a reckoning, a spiritual mirror, a mental command. And if you obey it, line by line without pause, you will never return to who you were. But if you ignore it, you will stay exactly what they prefer you to be: silent, uncertain, and afraid. Listen closely. Everything is about to change. The first and most dangerous lie ever told to you is that poverty is normal, that lack is your portion, that you were born into limitation, shaped by circumstance, and destined to scrape your way through life, hoping for permission, praying for breakthrough, begging for improvement. That is the lie, and it was planted in your mind long before you had the power to question it. You were not born to be poor, but you were trained to stay that way. Poverty is not inherited. Poverty is installed. A man is not born afraid to succeed. A man is not born hesitant to speak. A man is not born uncertain, insecure, or ashamed of his ambition. These are not traits, they are programs. They are the result of repeated suggestion implanted in the subconscious when the mind was still soft. You were told to sit down. You were told not to be too confident. You were warned not to dream too big. You were taught to obey rules written by men who never built anything. And slowly, thought by thought, word by word, your identity became something they gave you, not something you chose. You must understand now that most men live inside mental prisons built by other people's beliefs. They call it being realistic, but it is slavery. They call it being careful, but it is mental paralysis. From family to school to religion to employers to media to culture, you have been surrounded by thoughts that were not your own. And the more you heard them, the more you began to believe them, because repetition is how belief is formed, and emotion, especially fear, makes it permanent. This is the truth they hide. You become what you repeatedly think with emotion. It does not matter if the thought is true. It does not matter if it is helpful. The subconscious does not argue, it does not question, it does not filter, it accepts whatever is repeated with emotion, and it begins to shape your actions, your habits, and your results according to that belief. If you repeatedly think, "I'm not ready," you will act like it. If you repeatedly think, "I'll probably fail," you will create that failure. If you repeatedly think, "This is just how life is," then life will obey your resignation. But the reverse is also true. If you speak your aim, your identity, your decision with energy and certainty, and you do it daily, then your subconscious must begin to conform. It will begin shaping behavior to match the command. This is not theory. This is the law of the mind. And the world you see outside of you is nothing more than the report card of the thoughts you have accepted within. This is why most men remain poor. Not because they are incapable, but because they have been hypnotized by thoughts that do not serve their purpose. And the system prefers it that way. Weak men are easier to manage. Uncertain men never resist. Broke men never disrupt. And the truth is, it is easier to sell you escape than it is to teach you discipline. So they sell you distraction. They give you comfort. They give you motivation instead of mental obedience. And you remain locked inside thoughts you never chose. But you are not most men, not anymore. Because the moment you realize that your thoughts have been given to you, you gain the power to give them back. And when you give them back, you create space to install new ones. Thoughts you write, you repeat, and you obey. This is the power of the law of cosmic habit force. Cosmic habit force is the unseen law that controls your behavior once a thought is repeated long enough. It does not ask your permission. It does not care what you wish for. It only responds to what is repeated with belief. And once installed, it becomes automatic. You no longer have to force it. It becomes who you are. This is why it is easier to stay poor than to become rich once poverty has been accepted. The habit of smallness, of hesitation, of excuse has become law in the mind, and your life obeys that law whether you like it or not. But this same law can become your ally, because if you begin today to speak new thoughts, to align your action with a new identity, to repeat daily a new command, you will reprogram the law itself, and it will begin serving your new standard with the same power it once served your fear. Let me give you an example history cannot erase. Andrew Carnegie, born into nothing. No wealth, no inheritance, no advantage. But he refused to think like the world around him. While other men accepted their position, he rejected mental poverty. He separated his mind from their system. While they spoke of limitation, he spoke of vision. While they sought survival, he demanded fortune. And because he decided what to think, the world gave him what he demanded. His fortune was not the result of a miracle. It was the result of mental independence. His empire was not an accident. It was the consequence of refusing to think like everyone else. You must now do the same. You must begin today to take full possession of your mind. You must stop thinking what you were told. You must stop repeating what others have said. You must write your own aim. You must speak your own identity. You must reject every thought that does not serve the builder you are becoming. Do not say, "I can't control my thoughts." That is what they want you to believe, because the man who cannot control his thought cannot control his life. You can. You must. And the longer you wait, the more you allow poverty to become your daily religion. Now speak this aloud without hesitation. I do not think what I was told, I think what I decide. Again, I do not think what I was told, I think what I decide. This is your turning point. From now on, no thought enters your mind without inspection. No sentence is repeated without intention. No belief is accepted unless it was chosen by you. You are not here to carry their limitations. You are here to build your own truth. And that truth begins now with the thoughts you will no longer accept and the thoughts you will now install. You were not born uncertain. You were not created to question every movement of your soul. The man who now hesitates, second guesses, and waits for signs before he moves is not the original man. That man was built by repetition. That man was trained, conditioned, and shaped by voices that did not serve him. Because doubt is not native to you, it was installed. The natural state of your mind is faith. You came into this world reaching, trusting, obeying instinct without fear. You did not ask for evidence. You did not hesitate to try. You moved, you reached, you believed. But over time, those around you, small in thought, narrow in belief, afraid of failure, began to teach you doubt. They warned you to be realistic. They told you to slow down. They told you to play it safe. And because your mind was still soft, you accepted their limitation as law. And so your faith, your native power, was buried beneath layers of instruction, not education, domestication. And the more you repeated their doubts, the more your subconscious began to obey. And now as a man, you wonder why you hesitate, why you speak without fire, why you think about what you want but never move toward it. It is not because you are weak. It is because you were taught to disobey yourself. But you can undo what was installed. You can return to your original nature. And the tool by which you do this is called autosuggestion. Autosuggestion is the law of self-instruction. It is the act of reprogramming the subconscious mind through repetition, emotion, and belief. It is how you remove the voice of fear and install the voice of command. The subconscious does not accept instruction through logic. It accepts only what is repeated with feeling. And this is how doubt was installed in the first place. By hearing the same fearful ideas again and again, spoken with conviction by those you once trusted. Now you must do the same, but in reverse. You must become the instructor. You must speak aloud every day the beliefs you now choose. You must speak them as law, not hope, and you must act on them, because belief without obedience is spiritual fraud. You must say, I believe in my purpose. I believe in my voice. I believe in my decision. I act as if the outcome is already certain. I speak only what I'm building. I obey only the thought I have chosen. Let me give you a story the world cannot ignore. Thomas Edison, more than 10,000 failed attempts to create the incandescent light. And yet he persisted, not because he had proof, not because the world believed in him. In fact, the world mocked him. The press dismissed him. The critics laughed, but Edison believed before the result existed. And because he believed, he acted. And because he acted, the result appeared. This is the law. You must stop waiting to believe until the world shows you something. The world will never show you anything until you believe first and act accordingly. This is the core command. Do not ask for proof before you believe. Believe, then act, and the world adjusts. Read it again. Speak it aloud. Let it burn away every trace of hesitation, because you will never become the man you were born to be if you demand evidence before obedience. The man who waits to be certain will serve the man who already is. And do not say, but what if I'm wrong? That is doubt in disguise. It is the voice of the crowd, the voice of the man who stays behind and calls it wisdom. It is not wisdom. It is fear dressed in logic. The only way to know if you are right is to move. And when you move, the truth will reveal itself, not before. The man who speaks faith and does not act is a liar to himself. The man who acts before the proof arrives will soon become the proof himself. This is how you become powerful again. Not through external validation, not through praise, not through waiting for someone to see your potential. You become powerful by repeating the belief until you move and moving until results appear. You must now begin this discipline. Each morning, stand in silence and speak. I was born to believe. I act in obedience. I move with power. Write down the doubts you've been repeating. Burn the list. Replace each with a new belief written in the form of an identity. I am the type of man who obeys faith, not fear. I am the type of man who acts before the world believes. I am the type of man who commands results through obedience. Act every day on one belief, no matter how small the action. At night, write, what belief did I prove today? This is how faith becomes your foundation again, not as a feeling, but as a command. Say this now. I was born to believe. I speak faith. I act in obedience. I do not ask permission. Again, I was born to believe. I speak faith. I act in obedience. I do not ask permission. This is your new rhythm. This is how the man inside of you returns. The one who moved before others approved. The one who spoke truth even when his voice shook. The one who believed so deeply he began to build before the world caught up. And now the world will catch up to you because you no longer doubt. You decide, you act, you become. There is an enemy so quiet, so subtle, so deceptive that most men never notice it has entered their minds until it has stolen their lives. It does not strike with violence, it does not shout, it whispers, it waits, it hides beneath good intentions, behind polite delay, beneath respectable indecision. This enemy is called drifting, and it is the chosen weapon of every system that profits from your confusion. Drifting is the state of moving through life without command. It is waking without purpose, working without vision, speaking without fire, and deciding nothing with finality. It is being busy while building nothing. It is calling hesitation wisdom and fear prudence. It is waiting for the perfect moment that never comes, and repeating the same thoughts tomorrow that brought you nothing yesterday. Drifting is not just a habit. It is a trap, a spiritual paralysis. And it is the condition that keeps most men poor in thought, poor in discipline, and poor in result. I spoke at length of this enemy in Outwitting the Devil. I revealed its nature, its tactics, and its grip. And I tell you now, the devil, by which I mean the voice of fear, confusion, and passivity, does not concern himself with men who think. He does not fear those who work hard but live without aim. He is not threatened by talent. He does not fear good men. He fears only the man who makes decisions and acts on them. Because the moment a man decides and backs that decision with belief and persistence, he becomes a force the world cannot control. The system you live in, whether educational, economic, or cultural, has no incentive to make you strong. It has every incentive to make you obedient, to make you polite, to make you agreeable, hesitant, dependent. Because indecisive men are easy to move. They wait for direction, they wait for opinion. They wait for someone to approve what they already know they must do. And the longer they wait, the more they are shaped by voices that never had their best interest in mind. But the man who decides, truly decides, cannot be controlled. He no longer bends to the tone of others. He does not seek confirmation to move. He does not drift. He chooses. And in choosing, he becomes unshakable. You must now understand, drifting is the default condition of the man who does not command his own thoughts. It is the natural result of a mind left to wander. Just as a garden will grow weeds unless cultivated, the mind will produce indecision unless it is disciplined by purpose. Most men spend their lives asking questions they never intend to answer. They entertain ideas without selecting one. They live in motion, not in movement. They delay out of habit, not caution. And then they look up years later, wondering why they are no further along than the man they used to be. Let me speak this truth to you now. The man who waits will obey the man who decides, always. The undecided will serve the decisive. The aimless will follow the focused. If you do not command your day, someone else will. If you do not build your vision, you will be hired to build another man's. If you do not set your rhythm, the world will give you one, and it will not serve your purpose. Decision is not an emotion. It is a law, and it must be trained like a muscle. You must learn to decide without apology, without permission, without repeated questioning. You must speak. This is what I want. This is where I am going. This is what I will do. And then you must act. Do not fear being wrong. Fear being still. The drifting man never fails because he never starts. But in never starting, he guarantees that he never wins. I would rather you decide and adjust than think endlessly while life passes by. Andrew Carnegie did not build his fortune by sitting in delay. He decided early that he would control steel, and he acted with boldness while others hesitated. Henry Ford did not wait for consensus to begin building an industry. He decided. He failed. He persisted. And because he did not drift, he conquered. Now let me give you the practice that will kill drifting at the root. Every morning, speak your definite chief aim aloud. Say it as if it were already completed. Each day, write one decision you have avoided and act on it immediately. Remove the phrase, "I'll think about it," from your vocabulary. Replace it with, "I've decided." Every evening, ask, "Where did I decide today? Where did I drift?" Write the truth. Refuse to explain decisions to those who do not share your aim. You are not responsible to the confused. You must retrain your mind to associate power with deciding quickly and firmly. This is what all wealthy men do. They do not let small minds stall their movements. They do not circle their own judgment waiting for others to nod. They decide, they act, and they become strong because they do. Say this aloud now. I do not drift. I decide. I act. I move in alignment with my aim. Again, I do not drift. I decide. I act. I move in alignment with my aim. Let this become your weapon. Let it slice through noise, doubt, and hesitation. Because from this moment forward, you no longer wait to live. You live by design. You speak with clarity. You move with conviction. You decide, and the world responds. Every man wants to change his life. Few understand where that change must begin. It is not in money, not in connections, not in timing or talent. Every change, every advancement, every breakthrough, every moment of power begins in thought. For the mind is the battlefield. Not one battle of riches, health, or success is ever fought outwardly until it is first fought and won inwardly. And the man who does not rule his thought cannot rule his results. Let this truth enter you with finality. Thought is not casual. Thought is not neutral. Thought is law. What you allow yourself to dwell upon shapes what you move toward. And what you tolerate in the privacy of your mind becomes what you eventually obey in public. Most men lose the war of success because they never fight for the clarity of their own thoughts. They let noise in. They let fear whisper. They let contradiction speak louder than vision. And when their aim is drowned out by doubt, they drift, not because they lacked power, but because they lacked protection. You must now treat your chief aim as a fortress. It is not a wish. It is not an idea to be discussed with the uncertain. It is not a theory to be shared with small minds. It is your law. It is the foundation upon which every other thought must rest. And like any fortress, it must be protected, guarded with discipline, reinforced with daily repetition, sealed against contradiction. If you allow even one opposing voice to take root, maybe it won't work, maybe this isn't the right time, maybe I'm not ready, you invite the enemy into the gates. And that enemy, if tolerated, will weaken your resolve from the inside until you no longer recognize the clarity you once possessed. This is how greatness is lost, not in action, but in thought. To keep your mind pure, you must now introduce a daily mental audit, a checkpoint, a moment of truth. When thoughts arise, you ask, does this thought serve my aim or stall it? It is simple. It is binary. If it serves your aim, it is permitted. If it stalls your aim, it is rejected immediately. You do not reason with it. You do not debate it. You do not write in your journal about it. You command it to leave, because your mind is not a playground. It is a temple, and only thoughts that serve your purpose are allowed to stay. This is how Henry Ford built an empire while others waited. When he envisioned the V8 engine, engineers called it impossible. The press mocked him. The business world doubted him. But Ford refused to allow external noise to corrupt his internal law. He isolated himself from opinions. He held his thought in place until it became real. That is mental authority. That is how innovation is born, not in the lab, but in the mind that will not let go of its aim. You must now do the same. No matter who doubts, no matter what voices speak against your aim, no matter how loud the world becomes, your thought remains fixed. Let me give you the practice that sharpens mental discipline. Each morning, read your chief aim aloud with full voice. You are not reminding yourself. You are reasserting the law. Throughout the day, pause and ask, is this thought aligned with my aim? If yes, continue. If no, interrupt it and replace it. At night, write down the 3 dominant thoughts you held. Did they build you, or did they erode you? Speak this aloud before bed. I am the gatekeeper of my mind. No thought enters without my permission. This practice is not soft. It is not spiritual suggestion. It is command. And the man who trains his mind like this becomes unshakable. Now say this aloud, slowly and with full conviction. I guard my thought. I reject all contradiction. My aim is law in my mind. Again, I guard my thought. I reject all contradiction. My aim is law in my mind. Let this become your mental armor, because from this moment forward, your thought is not available to anyone, anything, or any emotion that does not serve the man you are building. This is the battlefield. Win here, and the world will follow. The greatest tragedy in a man's life is not the obstacles he faces, it is the identity he accepts. Most men are not crushed by the world. They are crushed by who they believe they are. They walk beneath their own power, but speak like slaves. They move with potential in their bones, but act like beggars, not because it is true, but because they were told it was, and they accepted it. They repeated it, and by repetition, it became real. You were not born hesitant. You were taught hesitation. You were not born afraid to lead. You were taught to wait for permission. You were not born silent. You were taught to doubt your voice. Somewhere along the line, you surrendered the truth of who you are and accepted a false name, a false script, a false limitation, all written by someone who had no authority over your destiny. And worse than this, you rehearsed it. You repeated it. You spoke it in the mirror. And in doing so, you installed it. Because identity is not fate. Identity is not background. Identity is not written in the bloodline. Identity is installed. It is formed the same way all belief is formed, through repetition, emotion, and obedience. The thoughts you think most often, the words you speak aloud, the actions you take daily, these are the bricks that construct the man you become. And every time you speak weakness, every time you act from fear, every time you obey hesitation, you confirm the identity that was handed to you, not chosen by you. But you can reverse it. You can uninstall the voice of the old self and install the voice of the builder, the leader, the man who acts, and you do it through the exact same law that formed the old one: repetition, obedience, and alignment. You must now speak aloud a new identity, not once, not occasionally, but daily, until it becomes law in your mind. Let me give you a script to begin with. You may expand it, you may personalize it, but this is where you start. This is how you begin to speak the man into existence before the world sees him. I am the man who decides. I am the man who builds. I am the man who finishes. Speak this as you rise. Speak this before sleep. Speak this when you doubt, when you delay, when the old voice tries to return. Because you are not weak, you are untrained, you are not lost, you are waiting for command. And now that command is yours. Let me give you the proof that identity is not destiny, it is a choice. Abraham Lincoln was not born a president. He was not handed greatness. He was not celebrated by the world. He was mocked, ridiculed. He failed in business. He suffered tragedy. But he did not collapse. He did not surrender, because inside him burned a belief not yet visible, a self-image that was not yet confirmed by the world, but already installed in the mind. And he obeyed that image. And because he obeyed it before it was proven, it became real. That is the formula. You do not become by waiting. You become by declaring the identity and living into it. You may ask, but what if I don't believe it yet? Speak it anyway. The mind learns not through feelings, but through instruction. And if you give it the same instruction repeatedly with power, it will conform. This is the law of the subconscious. It obeys what you prove, not what you hope.